Hi everyone, I am Chris. This is Simply Classic, and today we're going to be doing the Kirsten bag by American Stitchers. Now this is a really fun bag. It can either be worn across the waist or across the front of the body, and I've never made it, so this will be our first time through. I'm going to have a little bit of fun with the concealed carry pocket. I'm going to add some really cool fun cotton canvas, and we're going to actually do this out of leather. So let's go over our pattern pieces. Pattern pieces. So our first pattern piece, we're actually going to cut quite a few pieces from this. We're going to cut our front and our back, and I've done this out of a leather. This is the color apricot, and Gail does not suggest you do this, but because this leather is pretty thin, I went ahead and put some Decaville Light on the back side of both of these pieces outside the seam allowance. So we're going to see how that does. We also have two lining pieces with that same pattern piece. Put some Woven Fuse 2 on the back, and I'm using a linen lining for the interior. Now for the concealed carry pocket, usually I use waterproof canvas, and this time I decided to use just a regular cotton canvas, and it's really this fun print that matches well with the leather. I'm not going to put the Velcro on here. I'm just going to make this more of a kind of a fanny pack, for lack of a better word, that I can use during travel and probably times when I can't carry a gun. So I'm just going to kind of make this pocket fun, and I'll tell you though when we should put the Velcro on in case you do want to make it a concealed carry. Now the last video I did of American Stitchers was the joist. We added the Velcro there. You'll see it's super easy to put on. I showed you what kind of Velcro to use, so you can refer back to that video if you'd like to put Velcro on the pockets. Then we have our front and back exterior pockets. So for that piece, we have two pieces of exterior. Now, again, I'm using the leather for that, but I didn't put any stabilizer on the back of this. So this can go in the front as a slip pocket and a zipper pocket, and we already have the Decaville Light, so I think between the leather, the Decaville Light, and the other leather piece of the front, I think we'll be okay. And then we also have two lining pieces for that. Again, I put Woven Fuse 2 on the back, used a linen for that lining. We have our card slots. Now, it's kind of fun, and I decided to go ahead and give this a try. This is clear vinyl, and I had to clip these together so I didn't lose them. But we actually have 3 credit card slots cut from the clear vinyl, and then we also have a little slip pocket thing here cut from the vinyl. So go ahead and cut that. Make sure I keep an eye on those. I also have some gussets. So you have a front bottom gusset. You're going to cut one exterior. Again, I put some Decaville Light on the back of this. We'll see how that goes. You're also going to cut one lining and put some Woven Fuse 2 or something similar, SF101, whatever you like, on the back of that. So we have one of those. We also have one of the back bottom gusset pieces. Again, I put some Decaville Light, that's a little test. And then we have some a lining piece as well with some Woven Fuse on the back of it. For the top gussets, we actually have 3 of these. We have 3 main pieces, so this is cut from the leather. Now on these, I did not put any kind of stabilizer on the back. Then we also have 3 lining pieces the same size, and I used Woven Fuse or some kind of woven interfacing on the back of these 3. We have our strap tabs. Now, when you cut this piece out, you need to cut 2 out with the main part of the pattern piece facing up, and you need to cut 2 out with the main part of the pattern piece facing down. Basically, you want to mirror these pieces. So I have these in leather, no kind of stabilizer, and I have my pieces mirrored. So I have 2, and they're good because they need to match up, and obviously there's an angle. When we sew right sides together, we want to make sure we have 2 the same. I also have some foam, and I am going to put the foam on even though I'm not using this for a concealed carry because it's going to give it a little extra stabilization, and since it doesn't have a lot of it, I'm kind of adding some along the way. I definitely want to put the foam on. So you have 2 foam pieces that you need to cut. We have 3 zippers, 2 are the same size, 1 is a little bit smaller. I'm going to use a fun little tassel zip on the front of the bag. And then this bag is finished with binding. So my secret weapon to binding is using black and using black thread, and you can never see. It's really hard to see. Let's just say it. You have to really search for it. If something goes off or wrong, you have to restitch. It really works well. So I suggest, even if your lining's not black, to go ahead and use black binding. The last thing we have is a strap, and we're using a piece of webbing for that. I cut the measurement that Gail said to do, and then I cut a piece that was about 6 inches off of that measurement. I also have a buckle, and my buckle is slightly angled. So when I put this on, I'm just going to have to make sure I put it on obviously in the right direction, and then I have a little keeper. So those are all the pieces. Let's go ahead and get sewing. Okay, the first thing we're going to work on is the strap, and what you want to do is take your small piece of strap connector. We're going to thread it through your strap. And I'm going to stitch it close to the connector so that it doesn't move around. And then I'm also going to baste it closed at the very end here. Now, I actually am not using black thread, so I'm going to wait to do this stitch until afterwards so that I can make sure that the thread is black. It'll just blend better. So we're going to take the other side of the strap and we're going to thread it through. And actually it's not as important to do it right now because when I'm done sewing everything together, I'm going to fold this edge back, put my keeper on, fold this edge back, and then stitch it. And until I do that, I really don't need to worry about connecting this strap. So take your strap pieces, and that's the 4 angled pieces that you have that are mirrored. The top is this straight part. Now, because I used a strap that was 1.5 inches instead of 1 1/4, I actually cut my strap connector a little deeper because otherwise I wouldn't have had enough room to sew on either side. So if you're going to use 1.5 inches, just increase the width by just a tad and it's going to give you enough space. Or instead you can go down to a 1 inch instead of 1.25, and then you don't have to make any adjustment to these pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and clip this on, and I'm just going to center the strap in this short section, and then I'm going to put the other piece on top, and we're going to clip all the way around. We are going to stitch up down this short edge to capture our connector, and then down this edge. Of course, don't stitch there. We're going to have to pull it out, and then we'll top stitch. I'm going to make sure my strap is nice and straight. before you turn this, you need to go ahead and cut these corners. So I'm just going to do that at an angle. And then I wanted to make sure that I caught the edge here. I'm just going to trim this back a little bit on the actual connector, and then we'll pull this through. You're going to need to use some kind of point turner here to get these little edges out. So just work slowly on getting them all poked out. This side could come out a little bit more. And if it's not coming out for you, you may have to trim a little bit more off, which is kind of what it's looking like for me. So I'm just going to poke this side out and see if I can trim a little bit more off of that. Just got a lot of bulk right there, and it's not liking it. So let's see if that makes a difference, and then I'm going to angle this a little bit more. All right, let's see if that helps. Okay, so from here, go ahead and clip. Okay, and then from the front, and again, my buckle's angled, so I want to make sure that I am stitching on the front. I'm going to go ahead and come up, across, and down and top stitch. Now you're going to have a little corner sticking out here at this end. Just go ahead and trim that off. And that is one side of the strap connector. So we're going to repeat, do exactly the same thing on the other one. Of course, you're just going to use the side of your strap that's not attached to the buckle. Go ahead and clip. And then you're going to stitch all the way around like we did on the other one. Go ahead and trim your edges, turn, and then top stitch. The strap connectors are now complete, so we're going to set these aside for just a minute, and we're going to work on our credit card slots. So take one of the pieces of lining and go ahead and find the center, and find the center of all the points, so the two short edges and the two long edges. We're going to use a little bit of masking tape to help us hold these down because the credit card slots are clear, as you know. So from the top, cut this in half, and from the top we're going to measure down, and we're going to place our first credit card slot. And we're going to do it so that it is centered, obviously, as best as possible. And go ahead and center it. So I'm going to put some masking tape on this so it does not move. And we're just going to stitch right along the bottom using a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I was just really careful not to overstitch over the edges of the vinyl. I just want to make sure, and I think it's kind of hard to see because I know it's clear, but I didn't go onto the actual fabric. So take the second piece, we're going to lay it on top, and we're going to make sure that they're about a 1/2 inch away from each other. Now you can measure from the top. I'm actually going to measure this bottom edge and make sure the bottom edge of this is 1/2 inch away from the bottom edge of this one. I think it's going to be a little easier that way. So let me get my ruler. And then once I'm comfortable with the placement, I'm going to just go ahead and tape it down. And now we're going to stitch again 1/8 of an inch from the bottom. So we have one left. Go ahead and line it up. Make sure it is the correct amount. It needs to come down just a little bit. And once I have it where I want it, this time I'm going to tape just on the top because we're going to go down each side and across the bottom. So as we come down each side, we're going to catch each one of these slots, and then as we go up the other side, we'll catch each side as well. Because I don't want to come down here and push these down accidentally, I'm actually going to put my needle in at the last one. Okay, so the third one we placed, I'm going to back stitch up to the top, and then I'm going to come back down. So this will have a nice big back stitch area, which is going to be good for the credit cards anyway. And we're stitching at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance here. So once we have that stitched, we can go ahead and remove the masking tape, but save it because we're going to need it for the slip pocket. And now we have our credit card slots completed. So I'm just going to make sure everything fits. There we go. And one more. I think that it's pretty cool that it's clear. Okay, good to go. So let's set this piece of lining aside. That's why I had a hard time getting a second one in. I had 2 cards. So we're going to set this aside for just a minute, and we're going to take our other lining piece. Once again, let's go ahead and find the centers. of all the sides. And then we're going to take our slip pocket, and this time we're going to measure up here. Let me go ahead and put some tape on here. And again, we're going to be stitching down, over, and up. So I don't want that to move. Now another thing you can do are use these Sew Tite magnets that I've shown in a couple of my videos. They're from Sew Tite, S-E-W-T-I-T-E. I will go ahead and link them below. But they're really neat because you can just put the magnet on the bottom, lay this on top, and then your pocket won't fall off. It's pretty cool. I like those. Okay, so from here we're going to stitch down, across, and up. So that's sewn on. We can go ahead now and discard our masking tape. We're totally through with that. Take off our magnet. And we have our slip pocket. So for the back slip pocket, we're going to need one of our pocket pieces in leather, and then also in lining. We're just going to clip along the top edge, and we are going to stitch. Easy enough. We're just going to turn this and get the seam nice and flat. And whenever I do pockets, the thing I hate the most is lining peeking out the top. So I'm going to leave just a little bit of my leather showing in the back so that I don't have that problem with this. We're going to stitch across the top and then along the sides, or base the sides close. So this is just a top stitch here. Now if you want your bag tag on the back, make sure you add it before you base this pocket closed. Got a little end sticking out over here. I'm just going to trim that back. Got a little bit of lining this way because the way I folded it, since I left some of the face fabric here at the top, I have my lining peeking out just a tad on the bottom. So I'm just going to trim that back as well. All right. So from here, we can attach this onto the back of the bag. So go ahead and grab one of your main pieces. it's going to be the back. So if you have a difference between your back and your front, go ahead and grab the back. We're going to clip, and then we're just going to go ahead and baste this on. And there is our back slip pocket. So let's set this aside for just a minute and we're going to work on the front. So the next thing we need to do is prep our zipper for our front zipper pocket. So go ahead and take the smallest zipper that you have in the pattern that she has you use, and we're going to do the whole fold thing here on the top of the zipper. So go ahead and fold the teeth down and then fold them up, or excuse me, fold the tape down and then fold it up against the teeth. So we're creating a little right angle here, and we're going to go ahead and sew this closed so that it doesn't come apart. So I'm just going to make sure these two sides are even, and you can certainly mark this with a marking pen straight across before you do these folds to make sure that they do line up. So those teeth are nice and straight here at the top, and we're going to stitch. And when I do this, I always have the zipper facing backwards behind the presser foot, and I'm just going to carefully stitch so I don't stitch my needle or my pin. Just want to get those teeth down so I don't have to worry about them coming apart when I go to sew this on the bag. Do the other side. Okay, and that's what we have. So we need to do the same thing on the other side, which is a little bit unusual, but that's what the pattern calls for. And then we're going to do a little tacking stitch. So before you do this side, make sure you add your zipper pull. So I'm going to do that real quick. And I am using this tassel zipper pull. I think it's going to look cute on the front of the bag. We do sell them on the website. I know sometimes they're a little hard to find. We have them in bronze and in nickel. So as we come down, you see we can't pull that off. And we're going to do exactly the same thing on this side. So I'm going to split it apart, fold my tape down, and then come over. And if you prefer to hand tack this, you can certainly do that. You don't have to use your machine. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to baste those closed. So now we have the tacking on both sides. So I'm going to fold this in half and find the center of the zipper. And you can either mark this with a pen, or I'm going to make teeny tiny little snips in my zipper tape, just a little bit. Just enough so that I know exactly where the center is. We're going to take our pocket pieces. We're going to find the center. Of both the main and the lining. And I'm going to use some double-sided tape. I like to use double-sided tape when putting my zippers in. So I'm going to start on the main part of the bag and just put some double-sided tape. This is 1/8 of an inch right across the top. And I'm not going all the way to the ends because this zipper is not going all the way to the end. I just need it kind of in the middle. I'm not even going to measure. I'm just going to kind of wing it. And do the same thing on the lining piece. So now take the backing off of the tape. You want to make sure that your pull is going towards the left, if that's the way you like it. I'm going to match up my center mark on the zipper with the center mark on the main panel. Okay, so that's what we have. And then I'm going to do repeat for the lining. So go ahead and line these up. And you could throw a couple clips on here if you want. I am going to do that on the ends because I don't have double-sided tape on the ends. Okay, so now we're going to stitch, and I'm going to move my zipper pull out of the way because I'm starting, I like to stitch from the back of the zipper if I can. So this is the front side of the zipper, this is the back side of the zipper, so I'm going to start here and come on down. So let me go ahead and move this out of the way. I'm going to get close, I'm going to move it out of the way again. So before I turn this, I am going to just clip off these zipper ends. And you can use your lighter to burn them, melt them so that it does not come apart, although at this point it'll be in the seam, it really shouldn't. Okay, so let's turn this. I'm going to do the same thing with the lining, where I'm going to make sure it's not peeking out the top here. So that means that the lining is going to be slightly to, or the face is going to be slightly to the back up here in the corners. I'm going to put a few more clips in here. And then from here I'm going to top stitch across the top and then baste around. Now if you want your bag tag, it's probably a great place to put it here on the front, right here on the pocket. So make sure you do that before you baste around. I'm going to go ahead and top stitch, I'll add my bag tag, and then I'll baste around the rest of this. So I'm going to go ahead and do those few little things with the bag tag and then we'll come back. All right, so we have that part completed, good to go. The last thing that we need to do before we continue on is to put a little basting stitch at the end of this zipper. So I'm going to do that by hand because I want to do it in black thread instead of this kind of light colored thread. As you know, this is a different way to do the zipper, as y'all know. Typically, we don't do this curved edge at both the front and the back. So I just have a needle and thread here. I have a knot tied, and I want to, first of all, make sure that the zipper is open as far as it can go in this direction. I don't want any of those teeth to come apart. And then I'm going to start in the back, and I'm just going to come up on the zipper tape down below, and then do a little in and out right around that zipper tape. And I'm only going to do it about 3 times. I have a double thread here, and it's just so that that zipper does not come apart, and it's also going to give the zipper itself a little place to stop. Okay, so once I go in and out about 3-4 times, I'm just going to come to the back and tie a knot. Cut that off, and then just hit the edge with a lighter. Okay, and then we have our little tapping stitch there. So we're going to need to take the front piece, and Gail gives us a measurement to measure from the top and bottom. I drew a line right across. I think you can see that. And we're going to put some double-sided tape above the line. So this is the bottom. Here's our top. Let me mark the centers while I'm thinking about it. You don't necessarily need it for this step, but you will in a later step. Okay, so again, the larger part is the bottom, the smaller part is the top. We're going to place some of this 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape along the top. If I can find the end, there it is. And again, I'm just going to go, about in the middle here. Now, I want to put the zipper on, is what we're going to do. And I need a center point to mark that. I want to be kind of precise with this. So I am actually going to take my ruler and make a tiny little mark in the center. So I'm going to line up these center points here. And where the tape intersects, I'm just going to make a tiny little mark. So now I know where the center is, and I'll be able to line that zipper up. So take your backing off your tape, and with your zipper face down, you're going to line the tape right up on that mark. And the tape is going above the line. So of course the zipper is not going to go all the way across, we already know that. We need to keep it out of the seam allowance. And then from here we're going to stitch this zipper on. I need to move my pole out of the way, and if you cannot move it like I cannot, just go ahead and take your needle out, move the pole, and then just start back where you left off. And I am going to do a little back stitch right there. So now when we zipper this up, we have our little zipper pocket. So clip around the edges. And we are going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. And that completes our front zipper pocket. Isn't that cool? Very, very cool. I love it. All right, let's move on. The next step is we're going to attach the foam to our concealed carry pocket pieces. Now, this is just a cotton canvas that I have that I thought would be really fun to put inside the pocket. It matches kind of nice with the apricot leather. And I'm just going to make this a fun pocket, so when you unzip it, you get a kind of a neat surprise. So I'm going to stitch this on because I don't have fusible foam. And do that on both pockets. And even though I'm not using this as a concealed carry pocket, I am going to put my phone in here, and it's going to be a little extra support for that, a little extra cushion. Now, if you want this as a concealed carry pocket and you want to attach Velcro, this would be the time that you do it. You would go ahead and attach Velcro to the center of one of these, and you're going to attach a 4x4 piece and just sew that on. And I did do that in the Joyce bag that we did a couple weeks ago, so you can refer back to that video if you need to see how that's done. So I'm going to sew the other piece of foam on the other piece of pocket, and then we'll move on to the gusset. Let's work on our gussets. So we have two different gussets here, and they're done kind of the same, but they're going to end up looking different. So we've got a back and a front gusset. One's a little bit wider than the other, and then we have, these are bottom gussets, and then we have top gussets here. We're going to take two of the top gussets, both the leather and the lining, put them together, take this one and put it with the thinner bottom gusset. So one top gusset and lining with the thinner, and then two top gusset and linings with the thicker. Go ahead and put double-sided tape on both sides of your zipper, on both ends. I'm going to put one zipper with this one and one zipper with this one. Let's stick this aside for just a minute and deal with this one first. So we want to place the larger gusset piece aside, and we're just going to peel the backing off the front, one of the front sides of the zipper, and we're going to lay it down right sides together, making sure we match the edges. Don't pull the zipper, just lay it down. Readjust if you need to. Okay. Looks like it's off a little bit right here for some reason. Make sure you have it all lined up perfectly so that it is the same distance away. If this lined up wrong here, when you turn it, the zipper is going to end up being, it's going to look like the gusset's further away from the zipper teeth on one side than the other. Okay, so that's lined up nice. So we're going to take the backing off now of that side and place a piece of lining on top. And now we're going to stitch. And a little hint, I like to stitch with the zipper teeth facing down if possible. It just makes it a little bit smoother, not as bumpy when you go to sew it. We're going to kind of finger press this lining, get it open, and then join the wrong sides together and clip it. And now we're just going to top stitch along the zipper. Now we're going to repeat on the other side. So just peel the backing off of this side. I'm going to lay this down. And I'm going to make sure that the short ends are even here. Just align the raw edge up with the zipper, end of the zipper, okay? And then we're going to repeat for the lining. And we're going to stitch. So one more time, we're going to finger press this down. And then join the wrong sides together. We're going to top stitch again. So from here, you want to make sure you put your zipper pulls on. Don't forget that. And I'm going to put 2 zipper pulls on each zipper, so going in opposite directions. And now you're going to take your bottom piece, you're going to line it up along this edge, the short edge, and you're going to take the lining piece and you're going to put it right side down on the lining short edge. Okay, so you have the linings right sides together and you have the leather right sides together, and we're going to stitch. Open this up, both the lining and the lining and the leather, and we're going to top stitch right across the top here. So from here, you're going to take the other short end and place it against the short end on the gusset on the other side. And we're going to do the same thing with the lining. We're going to make sure the linings are right sides together and the gussets are right sides together. And we're going to stitch. So turn this again. We're going to turn it around so it's all nice and neat together, and you're going to top stitch. Now, I'm going to tell you a little trick. See how it looks like the lining wants to be longer? How it kind of bows up? I have found, for whatever reason, when I do gussets like this, that tends to happen. It has to do with the way the fabric is being folded. So what I do to make sure I don't have any kind of tucks or anything in this bottom gusset, is I'm going to go ahead and clip the bottom gusset lining and main fabric together. Now, you can see for some reason my gusset is a little bit larger, my bottom gusset. Either I cut it wrong or I'm not really sure what happened there. So when I baste this closed, I'm going to come in a little bit so that, because I'm going to have to cut this off so that it's even. Okay, so I'm going to come in a little bit when I baste. So I'm going to start, because I want to baste this part of the gusset closed too. So I'm going to start right here, right before this seam. And I'm going to baste this closed all the way around, keep going down, and then when I hit this seam, everything should kind of be, if there's any give or anything that needs to, any extra that needs to be folded, it should all be done. Then I can stitch across here, go back around the other way, and I should be good to go. So I'm going to actually turn this around to do that. Okay, and start stitching again from the top stitch side on the gusset. Okay, so I'm going to make sure this is all pulled nice. I have my seam right here. when I get to that edge, and then turn it and go ahead and top stitch now. And then I will continue on. I'm going to take this out and move it so that you can see when I sew. Move this over. Okay, so now everything is sewed shut, so now I have one unit here. I'm going to take this to my cutting table and just go ahead and cut off this excess bottom gusset, the little bit I have there. Can't tell you why that happened. I'm not sure if I just took a different seam allowance that I should have here in my zipper part, or if I cut one of these wrong. So if that happens to you, all is not lost. Just go ahead and use your rotary cutter and your ruler. Set this down, place it down, shore it up, and then you'll be good to go. So I'll do that in just a minute. Let's look at our other gusset. So we're going to repeat the process, but this is only going to have one upper gusset on it. So let's take the backing off the tape, lay our gusset piece down. This is the leather side. Okay, and then we're going to put the lining on top. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to stitch and then top stitch. Go ahead and clip wrong sides together. You can see as I'm doing this, I'm kind of pulling on both the front and the back. And as I stitch, I do the same thing. Okay, so we're going to top stitch. Went off here. Not sure what I did, but let me see if I can fix that before I get too far down the road. See, I literally just went right off of the leather. Not really sure what happened there, but before I go any further, I'm going to try to pick these threads out and then we will pick up where we left off. Good news, bad news. Bad news is it looked terrible, so I took it apart. And the good news is that I recut it, and it's obviously a pretty small piece that I had to recut. So I went ahead and stitched it. I just used the same piece of lining, no problem there. And of course, same zipper. So now we're going to top stitch. See if we can do a better job this time. All right, success. So from here, let's go ahead and put our zipper pulls on, and then we're going to add our bottom gusset. So as you can see, this side is a little, almost looks a little wonky because we only have one piece of upper gusset on here. But that is okay. Okay, so our zippers are on. So we're just going to take our main piece, put it right side with the other piece of leather, clip it on. We're going to do the same thing with our lining. Make sure our lining is right side with the piece of lining that's on there. You see this gusset fits much better. Exact same or exact correct size. So we're going to stitch. Then we're going to fold it open. And we're going to top stitch. And then from here, we're going to fold the right side of the leather up to the other short side. And then we're going to do the same thing with the lining. And we'll stitch. All right, let's go ahead and open this up. And before we top stitch, we're going to do like we did before. Just going to fold these, clip the bottom gussets together. And of course we only have one side to contend with here. So I'm going to start here where I have not top stitched on the bottom gusset, and I'm going to stitch down and around, come all the way up to finish here, and then we'll just top stitch this other side. So start out here. This is the untop stitched seam. Okay, so now I'm getting back to the untop stitch seam. So I'm going to make sure everything is laying nice and flat. And then I'm going to top stitch that seam. And then we'll come down the other side. our gussets are completed. We have like half a gusset and then a full gusset. So let's move on to attaching it. So we're going to attach the full gusset to the front piece. We have all of our centers marked on each corner on the front piece. We need to do the same thing with the gusset. So I'm just going to do that by matching up these seams and then putting a few clips here to mark the center. And same thing on this side. And then I'm going to match those notches to mark the sides. And you see the sides is not where the seam is, it's off from that. Because the bottom gusset is a little bit larger than the top gussets. So from here, of course, you want to make sure your zippers are at the top. We're going to go ahead and clip, matching up these notches. So we're going to start here at the top. Put about 4 clips. I'm going to go to the bottom. Do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to do the sides. Get that tassel in there. And do this side. So I'm seeing that where the front pocket intersects the front and the gusset, those seams are matching up for me. There's going to be a lot of bulk there. So just, if you've got a heavier weight fabric, be aware of that. You're definitely going to need an industrial machine, I can tell you already, for that part anyway. If you use a lighter weight fabric, it'll be okay. So we are going to clip the gusset. Now you always want, whenever you're trying to fit a curve, you always want to clip your straight edge. In our case, the gusset is the straight edge because the bottom of the bag here is the curved edge. So we're just going to put little snips in the gusset to get it to fit down into this curve. And what happens when you do that and you push down, these little clips that you made open up and it allows that fabric to fit right in. Okay, so we're going to do that on all 4 sides. Okay, so see how nice it fits. See how the little triangles or little clips open up? That's so that it can fit in that curve. And you're better to go maybe not so deep to start, and then you can always clip them deeper if you need to. And you'll know you need to clip them deeper if they don't fit. You know, if you can't push it down into the curve, then you know you need to go a little bit deeper. Okay, I'm gonna put the tassel inside this pocket so I don't have any mistakes stitching that. And so now what we're going to do is with the gusset side up, we're going to go around, we're going to stitch all the way around here. I'm going to start in a straight edge area and then approach the first curve. Now, as you approach the curve, you need to kind of finagle your fabric and push it down flat so that it fits into that curve. Sometimes either a stiletto helps to hold it down, or you can use some hemostats and you can lock that in and pull to make sure that it stays out. So for instance, here I'm holding this down and I'm just going to pull it so that as I stitch around this curve, it grabs. Okay, and shift, get that little tuck out. Use my hemostats to kind of pull out. Now I can tell here I actually am going to need to create a little hump jumper. That's a pretty thick seam for me. So I'm going to get a little scrap piece of leather here and I'm just going to roll it up and stick it under the back of my foot to form that so I can get over this hump. So I'm coming up to the next curve. I'm going to try to flatten it out. Turn, flatten it out again. So just take your time with those curves and with the going around and just make sure that you get those edges out really well and you'll be fine. So I'm just going to kind of take a quick peek here. Make sure everything looks okay. I'll need to cut back where these corners are so they'll lay a little flatter. Okay, that's what we have. So now we need to put our binding on this. So before I do that, I am going to cut the seam allowance back just a bit. You don't want to cut it back too much because you are putting binding on here. Okay, this corner I'm going to cut just a tad. Okay, clean up our mess. So now everything looks nice and even. So get your binding. And again, I told you I'd like to use the black binding. And actually, before we do that, we need to put one of our lining pockets on. So really what we should have done is based that on this front piece first, which I did not do. So I said this is the first time making this bag, so bear with me here, but we are going to get this on and then we will put our binding on. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip it all the way around. And match up my centers. It's going to be a little bit larger because I've already cut back my seam allowances. We just need to sew it on and then we will be good to go. So now that that pocket's on, I'm going to go ahead and trim back those seam allowances. Then we'll put our binding on. We'll do the next one correctly. We'll do it in 2 steps. We'll do it in 1 step. So from here, take your binding. This is pre-made binding that I just got from Amazon. I'll link that for you down below. And I'm just going to kind of clip this on. If you get bias binding, you can pull it around these curves and it'll stay nice. Because bias binding stretches a little bit. Now I am going to switch to black thread for this. That's kind of part of it, is that if you use whatever color binding you use, you want to use that color thread. Especially if you use black, you really won't be able to see any inconsistencies or missed stitches. So I'm going to finish clipping this and change my thread out, and then we will sew this binding on. Okay, I've switched out to black thread. You see I have extra binding here. I'm just going to kind of push that aside, and we're going to start underneath here and sew this on. Coming around our last curve, going to kind of pull this binding tight. It helps get around the curves if it's tight around the curves. And then at the end, I have quite a big tail here, which I left on purpose just in case. So I am going to cut off a little bit of it, fold it back on itself, and then just put it right around my beginning point. And there you go. You have the binding completed. Now, the reason why I do it in black is because sometimes you miss the back. It can happen. See right here? So I'm going to go back over that, and I'm not going to worry about taking anything apart. I'm just going to go right over it. Black thread, black binding, you're never even going to be able to tell. See a little bit up here was missed as well. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm just going to come right down the side. It looks like that's the only place I missed. And there we go, all fixed. So we're going to set this aside. We're going to take our back piece, which is the piece with the slip pocket, and we're going to go ahead and put our lining on first this time. So go ahead and line it up. I'm going to put some clips, and we're going to baste this on. That's what you should have done the first time when we did it. Instead of putting it on after you put the gusset on, go ahead and baste it on the front piece first. Okay, you're going to take your back piece, which is the piece with the pocket, and you're going to baste a piece of the concealed carry pocket on the back. So you're just going to put wrong sides together, baste all around. Then you're going to take your remaining lining piece and your remaining concealed carry pocket piece, you're going to put the wrong sides together, and you're going to baste all the way around. Okay? Then you're going to take your strap, and we want to make sure that the strap is not going to be twisted or the wrong side down. I have a slight curve to my clip, my buckle, so I don't want that to be going backwards against my body. So I'm going to make sure that that part is face down, and then I'm going to clip these on. Now Gail gives us a measurement as to how far down to go. I'm going to make sure this is not twisted and do the same thing on this side. Okay, so we're going to baste these on. So now we have these basted on. When I turn, the buckle is going in the correct direction. I've got my last two pockets basted together. So I'm going to change my thread, and then we'll finish putting it together. Now that the handle's basted on, we need to take our second gusset piece, and we're going to attach that to the back. We're going to attach the zipper side, so this side here. So I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to peel the backing off of the tape on the front. And I'm going to stick that on the bag, matching up the centers. Now, even though I have tape on this, I am going to throw a couple clips on here. Then I match up the bottom. Sides. And then we're going to go ahead and clip our corners, just like we did last time. Now on the zipper, you need to clip the zipper too, but be very careful because we don't want the zipper to come apart. Okay, so clip. I have double-sided tape on this, so I'm going to just try to use that to stick this on. And try to unzip. Sometimes unzipping the zipper helps. Put a few clips. And then I'll do this side as well. And put a couple of clips. Okay, so now we are going to sew this on. I need to move my zipper pole. zipper pull on this side around this curve and past where I sewed before to get it out of the way. Okay, I'm just going to kind of check this out, make sure it all looks good. Looks like I should have gotten a little closer right here. I'm just going to do a couple extra little stitches, and then we'll be ready to put our binding on. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to cut back the seam allowance in the few places that it needs it, especially around these corners. Now I'm not going to come back where my zipper is. I will cut back the face fabric there, but not the zipper. I really don't need to. Okay, so from here, we want to put our binding on. Now when you put the binding on this part, you want to make sure you don't get it too close to the edge of your zipper, otherwise you're not going to be able to close your zipper. So start it here, and because I have tape, I'm going to go ahead and use that to my advantage here and take that tape off, or tape the backing off the tape off, not the tape, and go ahead and just cover the stitch line there with the binding. I got some little pieces over here I can take off around this curve. Go ahead and stretch this around the curve. Being careful you don't get too close to the zipper in this curve, because that's where I think you might have a problem. Okay, and then from there we'll clip. Just keep pulling it around, keep clipping. And then as we get back to where our zipper is, I'm going to peel the backing off the tape. And then I'm going to let that tape help me stick this down. And then when we get back to where we started, I'm going to leave a tail, cut it off. And then we're going to stitch this binding on. Move your zipper pulls out of the way. So I'm getting to where I started. I'm going to go around this curve, and then I'll cut my tail off. Okay, so I'm going to cut this little extra I have. I'm going to fold that back on itself, like we did before, and then put it around this raw edge and finish up. So there we go. And right here I missed a little bit, just like last time. So I'm just going to make sure that that's covered there and just re-stitch here. Okay, and with that black thread, you'll never know. So this is the back part of the bag. All right, so from here, we got to put all of it together. So from here, we want to go ahead and put the bag together. So here's our front. We want to unzip the zipper. We want to take the back of the bag, and we're going to turn it so that the right side is out. So just go ahead and turn it. Then we're going to take all of this and stuff it inside this bag, just like this. And we're going to match up the centers at the bottom. Throw a few clips in there. I'm going to match up the centers at the top. And if you need to, go ahead and pull the strap out. It's going to give you a little bit more room. And we're going to clip this together. We're going to go ahead and clip the sides. And clip in these corners. Now at this point we don't have to cut anything because we have 2 straight corners, so everything should be matching up. Let's clip the centers here. Okay, so now we're going to baste this together. And all you have to do is just keep rolling your bag. So now we have all that stitched. We need to take the last part here, which is our conceal carry / lining piece. And we're going to make sure that the conceal carry pockets are together. And we're going to clip this on. So again, I matched my centers. Do the same thing at the top. And then the sides. And then we are going to have to, now at this part, clip the gusset, because again, we have a straight edge here and we have a curve on our pocket. So clip the gusset. Because you always want to clip the straight edge. And then push that lining on down in and let that gusset separate. And go ahead and clip it in. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this edge. And then we're going to clip that in. All right, one more. Okay, so this is what we have. We have everything clipped. And now we need to stitch. So I'm going to take this to the cylinder arm machine to stitch this. You know, we all know that cylinder arms are great for when you top stitch, but a lot of times they're really good for curves too. So we're going to take this over there and see how all this works out. So here we are at the cylinder arm machine. We have our bag, and I'm just going to go ahead and start sewing. Now, as you sew, you're going to be able to twist this bag, or you should be able to, because you don't have that flatbed in the way. You can twist it and turn it however you need. So that's what makes cylinder arms great, is not having that flatbed allows you to do corners a little easier. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in. Do a couple stitches there. Alright, so looking around, all these corners look great. I'm going ahead and cut my threads and we'll get the binding ready. So we're still here at the cylinder arm, and I have the binding all clipped on, just like before. So we are going to start stitching this, and we're going to stitch it here at the cylinder arm. So I've got my tail, just like before. I'm going to move that out of the way. And just start stitching. Now when you put the bag on this way, you can just roll around these corners and it makes it really nice. All right, so I'm getting close to my starting point here. So I'm going to cut off the excess, fold it under, wrap it around, and finish off. It just came off there, so I'm going to back up. Again, a great reason to use black thread, black binding. Let me go ahead and put a clip. All right, let's try that one more time. So check it out, see if there's any places you missed. If so, go ahead and restitch those and then turn the bag, and then we're going to take a look. I'm going to go ahead and do all that and come back and we'll see how it turned out. So here it is, the completed Kirsten. I really love a little tassel in the front. I think that's super cute. And then when I open the concealed carry part, I have that really cool black lining, which I could stick my phone in or whatever I wanted to. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you make this bag in leather, you're definitely going to need an industrial machine. The seams get really thick where the pockets and the gussets and all that come together. You can certainly, you know, in a faux, you probably need to use a lightweight faux or a cotton canvas if you're going to be using a domestic machine. So the back, let's look at the finished product. The back here, we have a slip pocket. That's going to go against your body. And then the opening here is for the concealed carry pocket. Now again, I did that in my super fun canvas, but this is where you would put, if you were going to carry, this is where you put it in this pocket here. And that's the pocket closest to you when you're wearing the bag. Whether you wear it across the chest or you wear it around the waist, it's going to be the one closest to you. In the front, we have this really nifty slip pocket. And then we also have a pocket that has a clear, which is hard to see because it's clear, credit card slots on one side and a clear slip pocket on the other side. So, really cool. Love the way it came together. The Kirsten by American Stitchers. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Give me a thumbs up, give me a like, and until next time everybody, happy sewing.